This is Storyboard. I'm Zach.
I'm Jameson. Yeah, we're back.
Yeah, we're actually doing it 2 weeks in a row.
Oh, man. No
How cool is
vacations?
that? No vacations for
man.
you.
That means summer's ended.
I've had no vacations.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all right.
Yours is to come.
Is it?
Oh, you're going to Comic-Con.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
That's next month.
That is next month. I got to get my costume done. Crap. I got to get working on that.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's this episode. I got to go.
Yeah, I gotta get out of here. I gotta go make things.
Hey, before we start this, we've got some pretty exciting news to announce to everybody.
Oh, yeah. Let's dump this on them. So, Storyboards Podcast is partnering with the North Logan Library here in Logan, Utah. And we're creating a writing contest for teenagers from grade 6 to grade 12.
Yep, it's going to be a short story submission. We are looking for submissions on October 1st. You can submit them through the North Logan Library.
You can go to northloganlibrary.org to find out more. They're going to be having some commercials going on the radio soon. And I don't know when their page is going to be up detailing it, so most likely next week is when all of it's going to be finalized. By the time you listen to that, that's going to be fairly soon.
But the super exciting thing is the person that gets first place in this, we're going to feature them on an episode of our podcast. You could be sitting in that empty chair right there. Great radio, but we've always had this empty chair right here.
You always have an empty chair in a recording room, just in case.
Yep, just in case. And that could be you.
That could very well be you. And not only that are we going to have you as a guest, but we're going to take your winning writings and we're going to feature it as our dramatic reading for the episode.
So what that means is you get a professional style recording of what you wrote.
And so if you're working on a book, if you're making something, if you're the next Aragon author, that he started when he was 15.
Paolini.
Yeah, Paolini. He started when he was 15. That's when he published the first Aragon book. You can get a chance to have the initial start of your book read and get out there to people. And not only that, we'll have a celebration event where your story will be on display. You're going to be able to talk about it to people and possibly have some special guests.
We're looking at trying to get some authors to come, so...
Yeah, keep your eyes and your ears open.
And your hands writing.
Do it. October 1st. Also, if you guys want, if you're here in the Valley, located locally, we're going to be having writing workshops for you at the North Logan Library starting September 4th at 4 o'clock p.m.
No, we're doing it in the morning.
In the morning, bright and early.
Writers are crazy.
So you can go brush up on your skills, get your book looked at and edited and professionally edited, and ready to go for a contest. That's going to start September 4th and have subsequent classes after that.
So get them in. Start writing now. Get those submissions in. Short stories. We want 10 pages or less, and we're excited to read them.
Yeah, and share this with your friends. Get them excited and get them in on this too. You want more competition, so you write better. I mean, come on.
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, do get in with your friends because the best writers have a support group to go around with them.
Very true.
I mean, Jameson and I edit each other's work all the time.
And every week.
Yeah.
Almost every day.
Yeah. Pretty much every day.
Pretty much every day. I'm constantly editing your work.
Hey, at least I don't have to completely rewrite it like you do yours.
Because it was like a 5-year-old series. Go on.
But our support group is bigger than just us.
Yeah, there's a lot more.
And so, really, get your friends in on this, because the more people that read your work beforehand, the better your submission will be.
And a good word of advice for you guys is, if you're going to have people edit your story, you've got to be able to take some criticism. When I was around that age of this contest, I had a friend criticize a story I was writing, and I took it as a complete, I can't write, and I just kind of gave up on it. I was depressed. It was not happy for me, but what I didn't realize is that it's got to be you've got to take it constructively. You will not be perfect writing. Like, there's no author that is perfect writing their first time, their first rough draft of anything.
Yeah, even the best authors.
The best books that are released have gone through 3 or 4 different versions before it's ready to publish. So take good care of what advice, of accepting advice, okay?
The people that are editing aren't trying to attack you.
Or your story.
They're trying to help build it up. And so a word of advice to those that are giving that criticism, that constructive criticism: use the Oreo effect. You got 2 nice cookies with a cream filling center. So you start off with what you like. You give a little bit of that criticism, and you end off with something else you liked, leaving a nice, wonderful aftertaste in the mouth and on the page.
And then you dip it all in milk.
Don't dip your page in milk.
Oh, not your page.
So October 1st. So there you have it. There's our happy announcement.
Yeah. Hopefully we get more of these things in the future.
Yeah.
It's a fun, exciting partnership.
We're really excited.
And now we're going on to Castaways. So last time we talked about Castaways, we detailed and kind of created different creatures that could be found within these oceans, within the
islands.
The islands.
The aisles.
And
of the grocery store.
And we got to explore and learn a bit about what it's like being there, what creatures you can discover just living there, and also some of the islands and the people living on them, how they interact with each other. They don't really interact with each other very much.
Not many of them do.
But just how they live.
Yep. And so today we are going to go and delve a little more into the culture of islands, and specifically talk about some very notable characters and figures you might run into. So, to begin, let's go ahead and start off with where it all begins on the Nameless Isle. So Jim washes up here, and it's pretty much completely deserted. It's not deserted the isle name. It's just deserted.
No, it's a barren.
Yes, it's barren.
There you go.
But it's got trees.
Barren of people.
Yes.
Empty.
Okay. Yeah. Whereas deserted is not barren of people.
Deserted is once had and lost.
Mm-hmm. Good. I like that. That's beautiful. Poetry. Anyways. So, after a while of Jim being on this island, he actually runs into someone that's living there, who goes simply by Stein.
Stoin?
No, Stein.
Oh, Stein.
Yeah.
Like
Franken.
Einstein. Oh.
Or like Einstein.
Yeah.
However, this man is neither Ein or Franken. His name's Paul.
Oh, Paul Stein.
Yep.
Sounds familiar.
It should. So Stein is a castaway. He's one of the very, very last castaways that are still alive during this time. He's been on Nameless for a while. He's got a big old beard and a big shaggy hair, He's got like a volleyball that he drew a face on.
I don't know if they had volleyballs, but okay.
No, he's hiding from the deep. He's seen what's come. He's like, this is where I'm gonna plant my ground and save the land. So he's determined to fight off the deep till the end, but is just like, please don't find me.
So he's a very heroic in mind, but terrified in nature.
Yep.
Sheepish and
He's a very brave person.
mm-hmm.
He'll yelp at danger and then run straight for it.
Ah.
But he's one of those that doesn't go searching out for that danger to begin with. It's like, if I can avoid it, that's great. If not, oh well.
You can tell why he's been on this island for a while.
Yep. So Stein, one day he's walking around the island and he notices Jim, and Jim is emaciated. He's not used to surviving on the island or by himself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he came from technological revolution where food was pretty readily available to nothing.
To surviving and gathering for yourself.
And so Stein notices him and he asks him first off, he's like, where are you from, kid? He's like, oh, I'm from England. Where? England? So they have this big old conversation. And if you remember in chapter 1, there's a very brief mention that Jim has a book. And this book is full of stories. And
A book within a book.
a book within a book. Bookception.
Wow.
What was that?
That's what that movie's known for.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, Stein is eventually able to figure out that Jim comes from the other world. My goodness. Wow.
Wow.
And knowing what Stein knows about being a castaway and knowing that you get that power by traversing the realms, he's like, oh, well, you're one of me. Well, this is good. I can teach you.
I'm not alone.
I can shave.
Somebody I can impress.
So Stein really starts to clean himself up and begins to take on a very big mentorship role with Jim, and teaches him about what it means to be a castaway and about the land and about their nemesis, the deep. And starts to try to figure out with Jim what his power is. Stein knows exactly what his own ability is. He's able to create constructs out of dirt and sand and things. And he can control those constructs with his mind. And so he's like, rise, big stone golem. Rise, other big stone golem / made of sand because I ran out of stone.
Giant pillar that will topple over and
Mm-hmm. And he can control those constructs, or he can be like, hey, look, I'm making a big wall. So he's more on the defensive side of Castaway's powers. And he's like, okay, maybe Jim has something like I do. He's like, can you do this? Big golem. And Jim's like, wow. And he can't. Jim just can't. And we've talked a little bit about Jim's power before. So eventually they find out that. And Stein basically says, all right, well, you're good. You're trained as a castaway now. You're going to be my scout. You're going to be the one to go out. And I'm just going to stay here, okay?
if you find the deep, bring him to me.
Yep. If you find him, well, actually, don't bring him to me. Keep this land secret.
Ah, right.
But if he happens to come to me, I'll fight with you.
If you're in the area and you're fighting the deep, I'll join you.
Yeah, just give me a ring. Give me a call. How do you know what a call is? You're like super old.
Call meant something different back in those times.
Yeah. Send a smoke signal.
I will call upon you.
What are you going to call me?
Hey, Steiny!
Yeah, Jimbo.
I found that deep thing.
Lead it away.
Oh no, he wants to come and visit.
No, lead it away. Don't call this number again. So that's a little bit about Stein, about Paul. But one more thing that we should mention about Stein is he's helping another person on the island.
Bum bum bum.
And we already met this other person too. In chapter 1. Who is it, Jameson?
Is it that poor little boy who got mesmerized by the perfection?
Yeah. And the one that was like sort of taken over for a second with a really weird deep voice.
And said weird things.
Yeah, it's Peter.
Peter!
It's Peter Pan.
Yeah.
It actually is Peter Pan. Peter transitioned over to the Isles, to Neptune, to the land of the Castaways, to Atlantis.
Atlantis.
I think that's covered everything we've called it so far.
Yeah, pretty much.
He's transitioned at an earlier point in his history than Jim did. And while there, the heir saw him, and being a chaotic entity, it's just like, hey, that's a young kid. Hey, stay young forever. And also you can fly.
Yeah.
So, good trade-off. Except for you don't ever grow up. And
you become a little creepy.
yeah. Well,
It's a darker take on Peter Pan, but
yeah. Very much so. But Peter, during this point that we first meet him in the Isles, he's in a coma. He's quite comatose because the heir's curse has been placed upon him, and it takes a little bit for the human body to recover after that.
mm-hmm.
So he'll become a bigger player eventually,
Eventually.
and we'll see him a bit more.
Schwiggity schwag.
Yes. Schwiggity, schwiggity, shway.
Schwiggity.
Are we bringing that
schwaggity
here
schwag.
now?
Yes.
We've done that for how many years?
So many years. I can't even remember what I got it from.
I have no idea. No idea.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's move on to the next person we're going to talk about. Who would you like to talk about, Jameson?
Mary.
Mary, Mary, quite contrary. Mary Burton.
Mary Burton.
You should recognize that name, too.
You should.
Pro tip, kids. Rip off of free, like, royalty-free stuff for names.
Yes.
All right, so we've already met Mary, too.
She in chapter 1?
She's in chapter 1.
Oh, man. Is she the nice lady that took care of him and
No.
and he got to talk to and... Oh, no?
No, she's not the nice lady. We gave her a name.
I know.
Who else could she be?
Is she the big, mean, yelling lady?
Yes, she's Mrs. Cratchit.
Ah, Mrs.
No, she's not Mrs. Cratchit. She's the floaty ghost-like lady.
The floaty ghost-like lady.
Yes, the one that says, Jim, help me.
And looks like she's drowning.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then falls into a pile of rain. And then a puddle. She, like, rains herself to death. But not dead.
I hate when I rain myself to death.
It's an every other weekend thing for me.
It's a serious problem. I gotta get some medications.
Yeah.
Some solidifiers.
What is that medicine that makes you constipated?
You
You just need more fiber.
fiber.
You just need fiber. Make you more regular.
Visit a freezer every now and then.
Oh man. So Mary, to try to not do too many spoilers, Mary is from Deserted. That's the Isle of the Deep Worshippers. And she can manifest her consciousness in dead things.
Dead things.
Mm-hmm.
So she's kind of a necahedrical.
Yes.
And then the necromancer.
She's a vampire. She romances necks.
Yes.
No, she's not a vampire. But she is a necromancer.
She's a necromancer. Necahedron goggle.
And no, it was a necahedron goggle.
Necahedron goggle.
Whatever. Who we will leave her alignment for you guys to find out. Because she could be good. She could be bad.
I don't know. Have you ever met a good necromancer?
Yes, I actually debated on playing one in D&D. There's actually a way that you can play a lawful good necromancer.
How does that work?
You can only use specific skills and spells.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is really interesting. Anyways, that's off topic.
Very.
So there's Mary, quite contrary. So we are going to now talk about somebody that you'll hear about today. Rois. Rois lives in Utopia, and a castle at the very, very center surrounding the labyrinth. It's a very Germanic-looking castle, so not big, massive towers. It's just like, this is a block.
This is stone.
Yep, it is stone, and it's encompassing a stone labyrinth. But at the very top of one of this castle, on the, I don't know what floor, but in an office lives Rois. Rois is a minotaur that has the bull body and not the bull head.
So the reverse minotaur.
Yep, almost like a centaur, but bull body.
Mm-hmm.
Rois is known as the Maze Keeper. He is someone that has been in Utopia for a long time. I'd give you years, but time has really no meaning there. Many moons.
Many moons ago.
And Rois is sort of the main, not sort of, he is the main law keeper of Utopia. He's the head of police, the chief of police.
He's the, I just forgot the name. Jean Valjean and
Javert.
He's the Javert of Utopia.
Yes, except more vindictive than Javert.
He's not quite a nice guy.
No, he's really not.
I mean, you'll see in the chapter that's going to be read, but he's not nice.
No. So it's important to understand Rois. To be able to understand Rois, you have to be able to understand Utopia and the culture of Utopia. Above ground, Utopia is it's a place run by laws, and very, very strict laws, in so much that if you break a law or do anything contrary to the spirit of the law, you get tossed in the labyrinth.
Oh no.
And so people are walking on pins and needles there, walking on glass.
Yeah.
Just, I am a good citizen. I do everything right.
This place is perfect.
Mhm.
I'm a perfect person, so don't send me down to the monsters in the deep of the labyrinth.
Yep, pretty much. And so there are tons of rumors about what goes on in the labyrinth, but it's all kept on the down low. And there is an underground resistance in Utopia, led by a lady named Taya, who is not from Utopia, interestingly. But the underground resistance consists completely of humans. They have some sleeper agents up above that are Minotaur folk. Minofolk? Tarfolk?
I think it's just Minotaur.
I think it's just Minotaur, yeah.
The Minotaur.
So they have some sleeper agents up above ground. But humans aren't allowed up above ground. If you are human, you're seen up above ground, it's into the labyrinth with you.
Yep.
And so you have an interesting dichotomy between, I love that word, by the way. It's such a great word. Between Roas and the law-abiding and law-keeping Minotaurs, and the underground resistance led by Taya. And with that dichotomy, whereas Roas is cruel, the underground resistance will take anybody. They actually mount a lot of rebellions up against the government of Utopia. A lot of them are failed. But sometimes, very few times, but they are able to mount that resistance, and they are able to get 1 or 2 people away from getting thrown into the labyrinth.
Yeah. And once you're in the labyrinth, you don't have a lot that you can do.
No.
Yeah.
Roas has rigged the labyrinth. He is he dabbles in chemistry, and has made a bit of a hallucinogenic gas. We talked a bit about last time.
Mm-hmm.
So you will see a bit of that today, and the effects of what can happen. I think it's pretty fun.
Your fun is one word, I guess, like some people would use.
It was fun to write.
Yeah.
It was real fun to write. So with Taya, we're going to segue over to one of the most important people in Rookhold.
The Lost Empress.
Yes, the leader of all Rookhold is lost. And there was a legend behind her and how she became lost. The Lost Empress, at that time, the not Lost Empress.
The pre-Lost Empress.
Pre-lost. That's what they called her. That was her title.
You're going to be lost at some point, so we'll just call you the pre-lost.
Was very much an inventor. She eventually created a jetpack-like machine, because this is very steampunk, with massive wings with the help of her father. And began to fly and got a little too close to the sun.
And her wings melted.
Her wings melted.
Ah, yeah.
And she became lost on a little place that we just talked about, Utopia.
Huh. So you incorporated a little bit of Icarus.
Icarus, the story of Icarus.
Nice.
Yeah, so Taya is a very interesting character. She's got a lot of her history. She's got a lot of doubt in herself, and in her inventions, even though her inventions are quite wondrous. And she is literally the only reason the underground resistance can survive. Side note, Jim definitely won't get thrown in the labyrinth at some point.
No, definitely won't. Ever.
I mean, why would that happen? That's stupid.
You make it a notable place. Why would you even use it for the main character?
We just created it for this story. Just the one we're going to read at the end.
Just this one.
And
so don't expect it ever.
No. And don't expect worse hallucinations to happen to the main character.
Man.
I mean,
you are expecting way too much.
Yeah, we're not that cruel. Come on.
People.
So I wanted to segue with the Greek mythology of Icarus, and we're going to talk about one last person today. He's you may have heard of him before. There's a whole Odyssey written about him. Do you know?
I know. Do you know?
No, I definitely don't.
Oh, well, let me inform you of his name.
Oh, please.
His name is Odysseus.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Don't contradict me here. I've read the Odyssey.
Yeah, but have you read my book?
No.
Some of it.
Well, yeah, some of it. Have you read the extended edition?
It's 4 hours long.
Have you read the entire history of Odysseus? And yeah,
I actually have read the full Odyssey. It's a
Nice.
good poem.
It is
It's an epic.
a very long poem.
Yes, it is. So, the fun thing about Odysseus is he is what is known as the speaker for the air, also known as the castaway. He's not a castaway. He's a pretty chaotic entity.
Oh, how far you have fallen, Odysseus.
You know those little the plants, the poppies
Mm-hmm.
on that island?
Yeah.
Yeah, that opium effect was brought about by him. He's
He just got cast away and he decided, oh, I'm just going to farm some hallucinogenic drugs.
Yep. He's just like he's such an interesting, weird man. Because the air, like I've said before, it's not inherently good or evil. It just sort of is.
Yeah. It exists.
Uh-huh. And it granted Odysseus longevity. He just can't die. And so Odysseus takes that longevity and does really stupid things like taking the lion turtle past the siren's lair without his headphones on, without wax in his ears. And so that's where those stories come from, is Odysseus isn't really lost at sea. He's just out adventuring.
He goes and kills a cyclops for the fun of it.
Yeah, and Cyclopes, it is Cyclopes. I looked it up. Don't look at me like
Cyclopi. Cyclopen.
Cyclopen. As we talked about last time, Cyclopes are actually very wise, very benevolent creatures. And he's just like, I'm going to go and confuse one for the heck of it and kill it. Just for fun.
Cyclops.
So we're going to run into Odysseus. And he's going to have an interesting relationship with Peter that will be explored. Being as they are both beings chosen by the air.
Have you ever imagined Peter Pan and Odysseus running into each other?
I have.
And then going and fighting a whole bunch of Cyclopen?
They're not going to... Well, there you have it. Those are some very prominent characters that are going to be featured in Castaways that I'm excited to tell you more about, excited for you to read more about. I'm actually planning on releasing Chapter 2 next time, so look into that. Look forward to it. And yeah, there we go.
Yeah, we're getting close to our 10th episode.
Hey, are we really?
This is episode 8.
That's crazy. I'll be episode 10.
Well, technically, you'll be episode 11.
What are you doing?
So, for a specialty episode 10, I figured, hey, we both have 5 stories out. So, we're going to make a special episode where you guys get to just hear the work that has been done. So, this will be kind of a charter, kind of a chapter heading. Like, this is our next chapter in the series. We're having basically a summary. You get to listen to the stories without the creative aspect of it beforehand, just in a row, in an order. And you'll get to hear both series back to back and get caught up. So this will be an episode. If you want people to listen to just the story, you can point them to that, and they'll be able to listen to it. And if they get hooked onto the story, they can come and listen to how we made it and the processes of our thoughts as we do it.
Because we tell so much more in these podcasts than we do in just the stories themselves.
Mm-hmm. So look forward to that, guys. But we're going to head now to something you should look forward to even more, the introduction of a new story from the Castaways universe. Welcome to The Labyrinth. stone ground to a halt, and darkness pervaded everything around Kylan as he picked himself up off the ground. "Air above! Did they have to be so violent?" All he said was, "I guess Utopia isn't as perfect as they'd like us to believe." Was it his fault that he was on a pedestal high above the ground, with a sound enhancer on so everyone could hear? He wasn't too harsh with his denunciation of the corrupt. He could have used much worse words than scoundrels, thieves, and what was it? Oh yes, bovine scumheads. He was particularly proud of that last insult. It really rolled off the tongue. Well, even though he didn't deserve it, since he was practically a model citizen, those scumheads had tackled him, roped him up like, well, cattle, and thrown him into the labyrinth. Even though Kylan was a native to Utopia, he had never seen the labyrinth before. He hadn't even dared go to the surface before. He was, after all, human. And being human was one of the biggest imperfections anyone could have. Humans weren't allowed to be seen, so Kylan spent his entire life on the down low. Literally. Living in the sewers wasn't exactly glamorous. What irony that the first time he dared to go up, he got himself thrown into it. What a shame that he still hadn't seen it, though. Being unconscious really stank. Trying to ignore his aching head, Kylan was finally able to undo the knots binding his wrists and stood up, waiting for his eyes to adjust until he could see his surroundings. The labyrinth was altogether unimpressive. It was made from simple stones, stacked upon each other to form narrow, uniform hallways. A pale yellow gas hissed between the cracks of stones, casting a glow on the whole cavern. "Ah, winds! What have they done with the air?" Kylan murmured to himself. He was hating these bovine scumheads more by the second as he walked towards the first intersection. He didn't know what he expected to see. Maybe something different than the stone and gas. But apparently this archaeological wonder was exceptionally boring. A bit of discoloration from the gas, even cut stones, and a couple gouges that Kylan assumed were from some other unfortunate soul trapped down here. He chose to walk down the path on the left, continuing in his thoughts of hatred. He was in for a long, long night. A rumble echoed up and down the hallway, and in his head, which was getting fuzzier by the moment. Stone scraped against stone, then banged to the floor. It began slowly at first, then rose to a cacophonous clatter, until the collapsing hallway quickly came to consume the trespasser. Kylan turned, screaming at the top of his lungs, and ran as fast as he could back towards the entrance of the labyrinth. The passageway to the entrance twisted and morphed around itself, forming a spiral. But a dizzying spiral was safer than raining boulders. He threw himself at the stone guarding the entrance, screaming at the guards to let him out, until he realized that the passageway behind him was silent. "I must be quicker than I realized," he thought to cheer himself up. His pounding heart and aching lungs, however, were starting to tell a different truth. He went back to inspect the damage of the collapsed hallway, and was surprised to see that the passageway looked untouched. He looked towards the entrance, and instead saw a collapsed hallway. What in the air? He began a long night of endless drudgery, turning from hallway to hallway, passageway to passageway, coming across dead ends and dead bodies. His head fuzzed more and more as the night went on, but oddly, his vision got clearer and clearer, and his sense of dread lessened until he stumbled upon a passageway, different than all the rest. Lined with majestic vines and flowers of every color imaginable, the passageway opened up to a beautiful quandary of a glorious garden. His thirst overpowering him, Kylan ran towards the stream that went right through the center, dipped his hands into the cool, refreshing liquid, and raised them to his mouth to drink. He coughed as the cruel liquid turned to dust within his mouth. He tried again to no avail. The water taunted him. This was more cruel than anything they'd done yet. Finally, giving up, he let himself slump to the ground, completely overwhelmed. Eventually, the trickling stream lulled him into a fitful sleep. Koomph! Koomph! Kylan struggled to open his eyes to see what had caused the disturbance, and gasped. A shining pair of red lights was coming slowly, but surely towards him from down the passageway. Koomph! Koomph! With each step, the dark being grew closer. The plants around Kylan began to droop, slowly wither, die, and rot. Koomph! Koomph! As the beast got closer, Kylan was able to make out the shape of a bull's head atop a man's body, complete with deep, bloodshot, red eyes and a salivating mouth. Koomph! Koomph! My brothers, we have meat tonight! Massive drum beats began in the distance, and each one rattled Kylan to the core. The beast began to sprint towards him, as Kylan struggled to stand and run himself, but his limbs were sluggish. He could not outrun his fate. Bovine scumheads! Roas the maze-keeper knew he shouldn't take pleasure in watching the prey finally be cornered. But he couldn't help but grinning just the slightest as his eyes perused his ancient table with dirt simulacrums, showing exactly what was happening inside the labyrinth, finally falling upon the poor hallucinating human, trapped inside. He watched as one of the inferior minotaurs ripped off the human's arm and began to bludgeon the poor fellow with it. He stepped away from his map to look out the window, overseeing the labyrinth. Such a beautiful view, so perfect. He loved this place. He loved Utopia, where everyone belonged, and the ones that didn't, well, they could feed his brothers. It was hard to imagine that such barbarous activities ever went on here, but the public need not know about them. I wonder what this poor fool saw before he died. Roas had never been in the labyrinth himself, but he knew the effects the gas could have on the mind. After all, he designed it. He returned to his simulacrum table to watch the rest of the proceedings, as the minotaurs hauled away their prey, built a fire, and proceeded to enjoy their meal. Air above, this is fun. Now we have to see if he's corrupted anyone.
Hey, we have a question today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we do.
All right, let's...
Guess who it's by?
Let me guess. Is it Arlene 96?
How'd you know?
Psychic. Or that I just have it pulled up right now, looking at it.
Hey, they didn't need to know that, man.
Oh, sorry. Magic.
Magic.
The air gave it to me.
Oh, no.
All right, this is from Arlene 96. She says, "Hi, guys. After the last Castaways episode, I had some questions and suggestions about the Minotaurs. First off, what if the Minotaurs could be born with any assortment of bull parts? So maybe some of them have human heads, horns, hooves, and a human torso, or any other types of combinations. That would give more variety, but the sentries to the labyrinth could be more human than bull, like you said. Also, do all of the Minotaurs live in the labyrinth, or is there a separate colony where some of them live, and just the most monstrous of them are put in the labyrinth? If they all live in the labyrinth, do they have homes and families inside the labyrinth? Thanks, guys."
Hey, great question. So, in answer to the first part of your question, can Minotaurs be born with any assortment of bull parts? The answer is absolutely yes. However, they're shunned by society. They are not the ideal. The ideal is either you have a bull head or you have a bull butt.
So, if you noticed as we were discussing ROAS,
We were disgusting Roas.
I didn't say
said
disgusting. I said
disgusting.
discussing ROAS. ROAS? I don't know.
Roas.
ROAS. I don't want to say that too wrong. As we were discussed,
He said it again.
you've got it in my head now.
As we were discussing Roas.
As we were discussing ROAS, we made mention of the fact that humans are kind of on the low side of society within this place, and what lives above the labyrinth is the reverse Minotaur people.
Mm-hmm.
They're the intelligent ones, the less monstrous, the ones that build and create and are thoughtful.
Yeah. Whereas we mentioned in the Create-a-thon episode
Mm-hmm.
That the bull-headed minotaurs were a little less intelligent and a little more prone to savagery. That's not true of all of them. There are some bull-headed minotaurs wandering around above ground outside the labyrinth. But for the most part, if you're savage, you're thrown into the labyrinth. Do they have families in there?
If they did, it'd be like animalistic, not like true family, like humanistic family gatherings in a home in a warm, hearth.
More like a pack.
Uh-huh.
The minotaurs in the labyrinth are a pack. They are very bloodthirsty. They kill the young if they're not strong. We don't really see much of their society. And what we do see is through hallucinogens. So,
You know what I think it would be cool is that there's a mostly human character that lives in Utopia that could be important, could not be, but the only thing that sticks him out so he doesn't get thrown into the labyrinth or wherever else is the fact that he has horns.
mm-hmm.
And so he's just a human that has kind of a bullish face, but more humanistic, but he still has the horns. And so he's kind of accepted.
I could see that. He could be kind of accepted, but only in darkness and things like that. If you don't, because if they ever catch a full glimpse of him,
Yeah.
he's getting thrown in the labyrinth.
Darn.
Yeah, they're very brutal. Utopia is very brutal in its enforcement of laws.
Look down, look down.
Don't look them in the eye.
So here's my question I just thought of. So you have the Minotaurs wandering the labyrinth, and they're a bit animalistic and wild, and they go wherever they go, within there, and they've got places they're comfortable with. Who cleans up after them? Like, who goes and poop scoops? Like,
no one really does clean up after them.
So the labyrinth is just gross.
The center of the labyrinth is just gross.
Oh, okay.
That's where they live, is in the center. Roas has installed sort of a system to try to keep the outer edges of the labyrinth pretty clean. Something in the gas tries to it dissolves things eventually.
Maybe they flood it every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it gives the illusion of cleanliness.
They flush the labyrinth.
Whoa, I'm on Earth.
Yeah, and these Minotaurs aren't complete, like Zach said, they're not completely idiotic and animalistic. They know how to build fires and cook their food.
They can communicate with each other.
Mm-hmm.
They're barbarous.
Yes.
Barbarous is the word.
I knew a barbarous once.
Did they cut your hair? Was that all our questions?
I believe so.
All right. Well, thank you for writing in.
Yeah.
And just a reminder, anybody can write in anytime. We'd love to answer your questions. That's storyboardpod@gmail.com.
That is STORY
Don't do that.
BOARD
No.
POD @gmail.com.
No, it's not in their head.
Storyboardpod@gmail.com. Storyboardpod@gmail.com.
You know what? I'm going to stop you right there.
Storyboardpod@gmail.com.
Anyways, that's been another episode of Storyboard. I hope you've enjoyed it. We're going to leave you. No, don't you dare say it. Storyboardpod@gmail.com. We're leaving you again with another sound hug.
Oh, I love this. I'm sure you love it too.
It's your turn, Jameson, to speak to them.
Oh, let me whisper sweet caressing nothings into your ear. Feel the vibrations and the sound waves wiggle into your eardrum and tickle your brain. Tickle, tickle, tickle. Tickle, tickle. Tickle, tickle. And the scruffiness just, ooh, you can feel it poking you on the side of the face as you feel the warmth of our breath.
Anyways, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, all right. Bye.